Hi there everybody, how are you getting on? I'd like to welcome you all here to this special night of accordion playing. That's of accordion music that's been hosted by Choc Seamus Innes. Very much obliged for all the efforts of Shane and Emma and the team for getting it on board. Tonight I'm joined by three of my favourite musicians and accordion players, Johnny O'Connor from Connemara, County Galway, Conor Connelly from County Galway, and Colin Gannon from America and County Galway. He's in Boston joining us tonight. These are three fascinating musicians, and I know they're from just looking at the list of musicians and accordion players that are just coming into the waiting room there. There's an awful lot of accordion players there, and I think they'll be fascinated by these musicians' stories and what influenced them and brought them along their musical journey. Our chat room will be open, so if there's anything you'd like to ask, or I'll try and keep track of the questions and try and ask the lads anything that you might be interested in. Just to give you an idea of the format of the night, I'm going to chat to the lads first of all about where it all began for them, early influences, etc. Then we're going to move on to the second segment of the show, I suppose. We're going to ask Johnny about his compositions. There's been great interest in the music that Johnny O'Connor has composed over the last number of years, and I personally have lots of questions for him about where he gets his inspiration from. Colin Gannon and Conor Connolly are very, very much influenced by the accordion music of the 1920s and the 1930s, and they've got some wonderful accordions to play for us from that era, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about the actual machines themselves and the people who play them and the great history that goes behind it all. I'll talk a little bit about the Sliabh Luachra accordion playing style, and at the end, the last segment then will be more like a concert whereby the lads just let rip and play selections just like they would on the stage down in Milltown Malby at Skullsorrow, Willie Clancy, or wherever else they find themselves, usually during the festival season. So there'll be a little bit more talking with I suppose, accompanying music at the start, and it'll be more music heavy then towards the end. So hopefully there'll be something there for everybody. So I'd like to start off there with Johnny. If you want to unmute your mic, Johnny.
Hi, Paudie.
So welcome, Johnny, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
No bother at all. What I'd like to ask you, Johnny, is what was it like growing up, I suppose, in a house? Your father was one of the icons of Irish music. I know myself when I'd be sitting down with my father and mother watching TV when Johnny Connolly came on the television with the melodeon. No matter what was going on in the house, it stopped. Johnny Connolly's on the TV. So what I'd like to know is, when you started off playing music, how did your father's music influence you? What was your father at the time? What was the music life like in the Connolly household?
Yeah, well, I suppose the funny thing is that when I was a young lad playing, say, 13, 14, 15, my dad wasn't playing the melodeon that time. He was away working down in Moneypoint and different places. He was in Clare a lot, in different places, Kilkenny and that, and he wasn't playing melodeon, he was playing the two-row.
Right.
And so, both of us would be playing, I suppose, stuff influenced by Joe Burke, and I was listening to a lot of Joe Burke when I was younger. My dad was only home at weekends and that. But he, later on then, around 1990, I was in my 20s at that stage, but I kind of lost interest there in my late teens, and that I just wasn't enjoying it, and I kind of was at a dead end. And then my dad started playing. Now, he hadn't played the melodeon when he was younger, you see, before he went to England. When he was from 6 up to the age of 17 when he went to England, he was playing lots of melodeon. He didn't play any two-row accordion. So we actually went back to the melodeon around 1990, 89, 90. He had an accident. He was working up in Sligo, and sort of a crane fell on him, and he broke his leg. So he was kind of convalescing for about 6 months after that, and he had a melodeon and started playing that. And that got him back into the melodeon, and he spent, I'd say, 6 months just down in his room playing all the time. And I'd be up in the room having a cup of tea with my mum and just listening to him playing and playing and playing and playing. And that was the first time that I really heard him playing the melodeon, because, as I said, he was playing the two-row when I was growing up and learning and that,
Brilliant. And maybe you might play maybe a tune, maybe on the melodeon that you just associate maybe with that time of your life and that time in the Connolly household.
Yeah, my dad was playing a lot of, I suppose, jigs and reels, and I used to be listening to him playing stuff and be playing tunes like The Irish Washerwoman, you know, that a lot of people wouldn't play, and I don't play it myself much, but he just had a simple way of playing it, but just kind of an interesting way, his own characteristic way of playing it. And it's sort of been in my head the last few days.
Lovely version.
That's a kind of simple kind of playing, but there's lovely notes there, and just he had his own, from the very beginning he had his own way around the tunes, you know. I suppose he was going back to his memory of playing when he was a young lad, you know.
Beautiful. And Colm, welcome.
Oh, I'd
here. Like to ask you the same question. Your father was also a melodeon player from Connemara. So where did it all begin for you? You grew up in Boston, in South Boston. So was your dad playing a lot over there, and who was he hanging out with, and what was the music scene like when you were starting off?
I think the best thing really happened with Dad was that he didn't really play for 20 years. So he wasn't really influenced by anything that was going on when the B&C style came around and all that type of stuff. So when he came back playing, he had exactly what he had when he got off the boat coming over here, like, you know. So it was a great thing to get an authentic type of style over in Boston. And Connemara in general, the Connemara people stuck together. I suppose it's probably had a lot to do with the language. So it was just kind of amazing that we had this bubble. We'd have people in the house, and Jimmy Canavan could be in the house singing a few songs, or Dad could play a couple of tunes that night, or my Auntie Maureen could be there, or my mum's cousins, the Graylishes, could be there, and it was like a little Connemara bubble in the middle of Dorchester, you know. So I was influenced a lot by that. I think Dad got back into it more so when I wanted to play, and then he started playing, and he went at it full hog then, and he's been at it since. I kind of had a very similar upbringing to Johnny when it comes to music. Like, I would have grew up listening to my dad, but we had tapes of Shawnee Fetweiler, Shawnee McDonough, which would be a relation of Johnny's, and he would have been married into the Gannons, so we would be in-laws or outlaws or whatever you want to call them. So we had a lot of the same kind of influences, and we grew up in kind of the same way, which is a conversation we've had many times a year for many years, you know.
Brilliant. And would you play a tune maybe that you might associate from your early days playing music in Boston?
You know what I'll play? I'll play a little bit of the Connachtman's Rambles. I was thinking about it there after our song check today, and the people like Shawnee and my dad, they had a great way, and it always reminded me of that great fiddle player John McFadden, of varying the last part of the last phrase of the second part of a tune, going back into it, and it seemed something that they had in common. But I'll play a cross between a version that I got off my dad and mixed with a bit of Shawnee in it.
amazing, Colin. It's a lovely version of that tune. Thanks a million. Conor,
What about you,
just
Paudie?
talking to you there earlier today, and I remember, I'd say you were maybe about 15 or 16 years of age, and I remember driving to Milltown Malby on a Sunday night at the start of Willie Clancy week, and I heard this accordion player in Nancy Cushla's show, and I couldn't figure out who this guy is. I said, geez, that's great music, and it didn't enter my head for a second that this guy was under 30, 40, maybe even 50 years of age. There was just decades of maturity in the music. And what I would like to ask you is, like, how did a young lad in his mid-teens end up playing that wonderful, soulful music at that age? Like, what brought you to that stage? What were you listening to? What caught your ear?
Well, probably that time, Paudie, was I was probably in my, could have been 20, 21, 22 even that time.
Yeah.
Because the first time I went down to Milltown, full hog, let's say, I was about 19.
All right, so you're older than I thought.
Yeah, going down on my own, yeah, and I think I was probably playing with Andrea
Yeah.
Blandry that time, and but up until then, like back in those years, I suppose I'd been going to since the age of 14 maybe. I went up to Joe and Anne.
Yeah.
The Joe Burke and Anne Conroy Burke up at their music school, and I'd been sort of nestled in that little bubble, like unbelievable playing, like, and great technical sort of masterclass of Joe and Anne, you know, for about 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I met this guy very close to us here in Ardrahan called Owen O'Neill.
Yeah.
Who was a B&C player, and he just kind of recently switched to C-sharp D, and I fell in love with the C-sharp D, just the sound of it. It was like one of those, like what yourself and Colm are playing there now, was a box like that with a big red bellows on it. Didn't suit it at all. It was C-sharp D. It was like big wild mad sound out of it, which kind of was like Joe Cooley at the time, you know. And that's when I started listening to Joe Cooley, and Owen, fair play to him, had all this stuff on a hard drive on the computer full of tunes, like recordings that he had made, iconic albums like Knock Nagree, Paul Brock, Frankie Gavin, and this guy that I'd never heard of before called Fiachna Mungan from Dohuma, up in the West Mayo Gaeltacht. And I think the first time I seen and of course Charlie Harris was very near us at home. He's literally like 10 minutes up the road, and I was kind of always going up there, kind of getting boxes fixed and stuff, and seeing Charlie at sessions and stuff around the place. And yeah, but I just remember there was a particular sort of turning point. I remember, even though it didn't happen that night, but it happened sort of later on when my mother was at work, and she worked in the Brothers of Charity, and she was just kind of putting service users to bed or whatever, and she had T.G. Cahir and Gantry on. And next thing, this Fiachna Mungan, it turned out to be, was on playing, and she texted Dad quick, or she rang Dad, and she said, turn over T.G. Cahir quick. And of course I was down the front room playing the PlayStation. And you know, I'll go up after this level. And but we ended up taping it anyway, and I watched it back, I'd say about a week later or something like that, and I was blown away, to be honest.
Brilliant. Would you play maybe a tune you remember from your early years, kind of from transitioning from BC to C-sharp D?
Yeah, and the box that Fiachna was playing that night on Gantry, I'm lucky enough now to own it.
Brilliant.
So it's a D&D sharp, and I just remember that tune he played that night, and
brilliant.
Just kind of stuck in my head, you know.
beautiful. They can hear lots of elements of Fiachna's playing there as well. That lovely wide, broad style.
Oh yeah, it was just so I was just so attracted to that sound, still am, and yeah, it was just really really nice and kind of focused on then that sort of avenue then for the years that followed since. So yeah,
Good stuff.
Well,
Great.
I remember meeting Paudie years ago, and I seen Paudie for years. We're around the same age. He's a good bit older, but we're around the same age. But we go back a long time, and I remember talking to him about music and trying to figure out where he came from. We were trying to figure each other out. But you should tell them a little bit about yourself, like, because I know you grew up close to John Brosnan, and you guys spent a lot of time with Johnny Leary, and you have influences now that the three of us, with our Galway influences, even though we reached out, you were in the middle of that type of stuff that we were chasing in later days.
Yeah, I was kind of lucky. Like Anne McAuliffe was my music teacher, and get a lesson off her once a week, pretty similar to what Conor would have been getting from Joe and Dan. But I was kind of lucky back then in the 80s. Like, people didn't really kind of tut about kids going into pubs and things like that. Even on a school night, my mum and dad used to bring me out to music sessions quite a lot. John Brosnan used to have a great session over in the Shoemakers Inn in Castleisland on a Tuesday, and Jimmy Doyle used to do one in Kilcummin on a Thursday. But the real added bonus on top of hearing those great box players was a lot of Paudie O'Connor's fiddle students were still alive, and there could be 10, 12, 15 of them all lined up in a row beside whoever's leading the session, John or Jimmy. So as well as hearing this great accordion playing, you were also hearing the real authentic sound of Paudie O'Connor's pupils. And like, so every night you went out, you were just getting this absolute. Now I don't think anybody who was there appreciated it at the time for what it was. I mean, we're all listening to archive recordings now of all these people who've sadly passed on. But when I think back, when I list out the names, you go over to Kilcummin, and you might have Jimmy Doyle, William Patchy and Connell, Ger Collins. You might go over to Castleisland. You'd have John Brosnan. You might have visiting musicians from West Limerick. And again, all those fiddle students at Paudie O'Connor would be there as well. I used to call over to John quite a bit to get the accordions tuned. And one thing I remember, John had always put a few tunes on the tape for me. So that was something I'd always look forward to. And John's style was obviously very, very different to what I always say, and I kind of said in the sleeve notes there, my album that I made, that kind of John kind of created a new style of playing. It was like half C sharp D, half B C. It was like a middle ground. It was very expressive. And but there's a set of slides that I was down there at my mother's house before Christmas, and like all of us have these boxes of tapes we have from back in the 80s, and I was just going through these boxes of tapes, and I found some music that I'd recorded over at John Brosnan's house, probably collecting an accordion. He played these two slides, just two very well known slides, the Gallant Tipperary Boys, and a tune that Paddy Cronin recorded. Some people call it Paddy Cronin's these days. It's also called Across the Road.
Lovely. Absolutely brilliant, Paudie, and absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
And I know you're the four of us are similar. Myself and Paudie, we go back a long time, and all of us we're very similar this way. The music is very important to us. The situations are very important as well, and the experiences we have. Like I remember one day sitting down with Paudie and John Brosnan in Castle Island, and it was one of the most special days of my life. Could you tell them a little bit about that day, with yourself and John, the way you played, and there was things coming out at the same time that I never heard anybody do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I suppose even though myself, yourself, and John were both BC players, we'd have the same interest in the kind of the press and draw musicians such as Connelly and Kimmel, etc. And John just went into a big blast of stuff from that year. And what John, I suppose, played, we knew where was coming next, and it was just one of those days where everything was just clicking. And I know that you were kind of being involved in the design of the Manfrini accordions, and there was one there at the time, and we were playing it, and every time one of us went down to a low note, we all missed a note on it, and we couldn't figure it out. So John went out to the car and came out with a
didn't all miss a
tools
note.
for taking accordions. We took the accordion apart up on a pool table, and we eventually realised that the keyboard wasn't made to at the time to a standard space between each of the buttons, so that's how it all finished up, an accordion on 20 pieces up on the pool table.
We solved a lot of problems that day.
Yeah, we did indeed. But we'll move on, and I'd like to ask Johnny, if you bring on your mic there, good man.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary there about you recently on TV, and they were looking and asking you about all the music you've been composing over the last number of years. And I've been listening to lots of them on your albums and learning the tunes myself. I love playing them, and I'm fascinated. I don't really compose music myself. I'm fascinated to hear about your thought process. You seem to compose music from a wide range of genres. There seems to be classical musical influences as well. Would you like to tell us maybe a bit about all of that?
Yeah, well, I think I've always said it that there's every good musician has one good tune in them to compose, and a lot of people that I know who are good musicians or great musicians have composed at least one really good tune, and Colm has composed a lovely tune, and lots of other people I know. But the thing is that composing lots of tunes is more difficult, or lots of tunes that are any good or that people might like or play. And so I've had a huge interest in classical music as well as traditional music, and I think that gives you a broader fund of melody to draw from, a bigger well, because classical music in the melodies is not that far removed from traditional Irish music, so most of the time the influences would be unconscious. A lot of the tunes that I've composed are purely traditional tunes, especially on the melodeon, but also on the accordion as well. But I was just thinking about what you're saying about the classical influences, and one of the examples that I would have that has actual classical references or was very much in my head was a tune that I composed for Sliabh Luachra called Liam Brodon, which is a hop jig. And myself and Liam played it on my last album, which is the Farinish Barachan, but it's a melodeon version. But the original version is in D minor with a B flat note, which of course is not on the melodeon, so I had to change it for the melodeon for it to work, But the original version has a B flat, and it's based on Liam O'Connor's favourite violin concerto, which is the Sibelius, which is in D minor, and that's why. So the first thing I do is choose a key. So the Sibelius concerto is in. So the first thing I think of is the key. So it's how do I incorporate, say, a B flat in that? So in the first opening bar, so you have that B flat coming in there, and I try to incorporate some of the melody, the opening melody of the Sibelius. The solo violin starts. You hear that grace note, which is very much like an Irish. It's a Finnish it's based on a Finnish melody, I suppose, a folk melody, and Sibelius is very influenced by Finnish folk melodies. So I try to incorporate that. So I got it into I couldn't get the three notes, but just the feeling of it in the second part. there's another part of the concerto in my own tune. And that play between the D minor and the A minor. These are little bits from the concerto, and these were the bits that were in my head when I was composing the tune. And so those little bits are there. They're only just kind of references, but they help to shape the tune, you know. So I'll play a little bit of the Liam of Rodon, or the tune for Liam O'Connor, which is based on the Sibelius. So. Basically the idea of it.
That's incredible.
Does that make any sense to you?
Well, after listening to that, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to compose a tune.
But that's one of the more complicated examples that I gave you. Most of the tunes that I compose, I don't think consciously. It's because that I wanted to, first of all, also, I think there's a bit of Liam O'Connor in that tune as well.
Definitely.
The personality of the musical personality, or just the personality of the musician, is very important to me. And I've composed an awful lot of tunes for other musicians. Like I composed tunes, one or two for Colm and for his lovely wife Kelly, and for John Blake and a lot of different people. And they're all very different tunes, and they're based on the person. They're also based on what they like, or what I think they might like. And so
brilliant.
It's the process goes in many directions. But I thought it might be interesting to give a classical reference to that one.
No, I find that fascinating. That's and I can definitely hear. I mean, Liam plays on the album with you on that track as well, as far as I remember, doesn't he?
He does,
Johnny?
yeah.
Yeah, and you can definitely hear how suited it is to Liam's fiddle playing. Thanks a million for that, Johnny. Colm, if I could turn over to yourself there for a minute. You have a great interest in the music of the 1920s and 1930s, and over the last number of years, a couple of years ago, you procured a really interesting accordion. Maybe you could take it up and show the viewers the box itself, and maybe tell us a little bit about its history and the wonderful lady that actually played the tune. The box.
Well, this is it's a superior brand accordion, so there's only a couple of them made. I'll bring it nice and close. And what was her name? And Ma McNulty, they called her, and it's amazing. I mean, it's got full of rhinestones. There's big square buttons on it. It's a 6 voice instead of a 3 voice what I'd normally play, and it was made for the old dance halls, I suppose, when they had no amplification, so people could be heard. But Ma McNulty was a very interesting lady. She was from Roscommon, and she moved to the States, and she got married over here, and her husband passed away during the war. And what she did is she kind of trained her family in, and her son and daughter went on tour with her, and they supported themselves through the music. They were big, massive people in the vaudeville scene. And I mean, so massive that they were the most sought after at the time. I'm sure there's box players listening to this. She said she was the most employable box player out there because she could play in every key, because she had a box in nearly every key. Because it was only one row, so the one row would have been limited key-wise and all that type of stuff for certain notes. But this one, I was lucky enough, there's a guy called Ted McGrath, and he offered it to me years ago. He wanted me to be custodian of it, but I wouldn't take it because I was afraid to take it, because I'd be afraid to take it out. I said, what if something happens to it and they want it back? And then I sent him an email one night. I was like, I wanted to pay him for it, but he wouldn't take no money for it. He said, listen, you're custodian for it. We did a contract out and all this type of stuff. I have this box as long as I want to play it. I'm never allowed to sell it, but I can gift it to somebody else, which I thought that was pretty cool. You know,
wow.
It's a shit. Yeah, it's a pretty big honor. Ma McNulty and the McNulty family, they were world renowned at the time. They recorded something like 255 tracks that I know about.
And it would have been back around the 1930s, Colm, is it?
This box itself was made in 1939, but she would have been recording from the 20s onto the 50s, I'd say.
Right.
You know, yeah, she was amazing. If you, some of these people watching, they should Google some of the pictures of her. She's big, blonde, strong-looking woman. You know, she'd have guys tap dancing in the back, and it was just phenomenal what was going on. Like, you know,
unbelievable. And would you give us maybe a selection of tunes that you think might kind of typify what the sound might have been like from that accordion back then?
You know what I'll do is I'll play the first tune that I played on it, which is a tune that Bernie Garrity, Kelly's grandfather, wrote, and I had it in my head, and I would never play it on my own accordion, but I picked this up from the post office, and I pulled over at the gas station in Castle, Morchin Bonds, and I sat on the bench out there, and I played it for an hour, and I just played this tune, but it always seemed to me that it would suit it, and it's kind of got that type of vibe, and even sometimes I sit down and I play along with her recording some of the songs and stuff like that, and the sound of the accordion hasn't changed at all. It's as authentic as it was on that day. But yeah, I'll play this one for you, just one tune.
Colm. Great stuff, Colm. It's amazing to hear. I know I've tried to play that accordion a couple of times. She must have been quite a strong lady, because I mean the spring compression on that right hand side it's not an easy box to play. You want to be strong. Good fingers.
You need biceps in every finger.
Yeah.
The first time I seen it played, it was sent to this house first, and I was on WhatsApp video, and my dad pulled it out, and I said to Dad, but you know, those guys have different hands than we have. We're a little softer, I think. You know, I don't know what it is. Maybe the MacBook Pros did it to us, but either way, we don't have what they had. And I said, what's the keyboard like? He said, oh, it's easy. He said, just like a Castagnari. I said, Paudie couldn't play it.
No, too right. Very good. Conor, I'd like to move over to yourself there. Obviously, when you were playing some music associated with your early days in the C-sharp D, the first thing I noticed there, you took up a Hohner accordion, which is Fiachna's old box, and obviously that's a sound that you have a particular grow for. and you've kind of, your sound has become associated, I suppose, a little bit with Hohner accordions. I know at the night of the TG Carr Award we saw you playing a Hohner as well, and we were talking, and just to let everybody know, during the week we were trying to put the show together, and I asked Conor like what has drawn you to Hohner accordions, and he jokingly said poverty. But the reality is you do get a very soulful sound from them. What is it that does attract you to those accordions?
The first thing it was the what do you call it, was seeing Fiachna play that night in Gantry. I just went, what is that accordion? I want one. Do you know? And because I never heard anybody playing one of those Hohners that had a nice sound out of it that I liked. I never seen one actually, one that was tree vice or something like that. And then sure, I got that box, and then sure I loved it. Like I'd say within the first 2 years, like I had some playing done. So the first box I got after that then was one in C and C sharp then that I play. It's like a C sharp box for me. It'd be E flat for E, but I got that one and I loved that one. What I grew to like about them was like the tone was nice. It was bright. It's completely different to an Italian made box. It's kind of lower quality. You can hear it in it. The reeds aren't the best quality like the Italian ones, but there's still a good old hearty old scratch out of them anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of and they're light factory made box. They were brilliant because you could get parts of them, and all the parts from different boxes that were made from 1939 to 1975. You could interchange them, and you wouldn't have any problems with them. So they were unbelievable like that. It was the weight of the left hand that sealed it for me. Like it was nice. I was able to throw it around because I'm not as strong as you lads with your Paulos and your Manfrini's and.
Yeah, I know I've picked up those Hohners you have once or twice, and one thing that does grab me straight away is how well they have been customised. It's Charlie Harris that does that for you, is it, Conor?
Yeah, Charlie's done a good few of them, and Martin Quinn as well has done great work on my C sharp D one here. That even though there's check reeds in them, they're kind of newish enough. So it kind of sounds a small bit different, a bit more fuller sound, but it still has that kind of Hohner-esque sort of sound as well, with all the lightness, you know.
Amazing. And going back to yesteryear, I know we were talking there yesterday, you took out another accordion with a lot of history. An accordion belonged to the great Jack Doyle. You might like to maybe show that to our viewers and maybe tell us a little bit about it, the man himself, and maybe play a tune.
No, to be perfectly honest, Paudie, I don't know an awful lot about Jack Doyle. I was hoping you might sort of indulge the listeners and the viewers, but this is a box that when I was going up to Charlie Harris's house up in Ardrahan, I used to see this being played, and like the one that Colm has, like Ma's box, this is a 6 voice, twice as many reeds as we're used to playing, but in compared to the one that Colm has, this has 1.5 rows. So it was kind of smack bang in the middle of that period where boxes were going from 1 row to 2 rows. So this it's a perfect kind of viewing of that era where it was kind of switching over to 10 or 11 keys with accidentals, with your few flats and sharps before it completely went to 2 row.
Yeah. Maybe you might pick a tune there that kind of gives us an idea of how that box might sound, and maybe just utilising the 2 rows on the box.
Let's see. Maybe not utilising the 2 rows. Well, I'll give you a snippet of one from a great player from around that, just off the top of my head now, from that era. great Joe Duran,
Yeah.
and his mentor Jerry O'Brien from Youghal.
Yeah.
And it's a tune called the. You know, I can't remember it. You'd probably be able to put a name in it. I hadn't played those kind of tunes in a while now. But,
No, it reminds me of a documentary there that I think was Peter Brown did one on the great Joe Duran himself, and he talked really, I suppose, very affectionately and kind of almost spoke about Jerry McCarthy as like a hero of an accordion player. And I heard some of the recordings, and he was such a pristine player. All those types of pieces, he really made some job of them.
And we were talking about Charlie Harris there as well. Like, Charlie Harris has like been an absolute massive influence for me as well, and introducing me into that whole music of that era, teens, 20s, 30s music, and 40s when that would have been recorded. And like, Charlie sits and listens to all these recordings and transposes them in staff notation, note for note, is like unbelievable. His knowledge is unbelievable. And we were just talking about Joe Duran, like Jerry O'Brien was
Jerry O'Brien, called him Jerry McCarthy. Sorry, Jerry O'Brien, of course.
An equally good musician, Jerry McCarthy, of course. But we were up one day and we were kind of doing rehearsals for a gig in Glore that didn't come about in the end, but we were playing this tune that he got from a recording of Jerry, and like, Charlie had it note for note and was able to play it exactly like Jerry. I just had a recording of him playing it. I'll give it a go. It's just the
good, brilliant.
There we are.
Beautiful altogether, Conor. It's amazing. It's great to hear those accordions sounding like that.
Oh, yeah.
Paudie,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you there, just in relation to your own playing, and when I was much younger, I thought that Sliabh Luachra music was all slides and polkas.
Yeah.
And listening to it over the last number of years, reels and jigs of, there's really profound music there. It's in the slides and the polkas as well, but there's lots of reels and jigs. And I remember asking you before, you were giving a workshop over in Spittle, and I came at the end to pick up my nephew Joshua, and I was asking you about those little chromatic things that happen in the tunes that seems to be particular to Sliabh Luachra. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, or where it comes from, and or even demonstrate it, or what it's about.
Well, I suppose if you could go around, I suppose Sliabh Luachra, especially during the 80s and 90s, I suppose the average guy and the average woman, they love music first of all for dancing. They just absolutely loved listening to the music for the dancing, and I suppose Johnny O'Leary was known for playing for dancers, and most of us who learned the music, Johnny really was the source, because he was best at remembering the tunes from O'Keefe. Johnny had almost like photographic memory. He just never forgot anything, and there was so much of the music that we've all learned over the last 30 years. Really, Johnny really was the main man for keeping it alive when everybody else was kind of forgetting a tune here and there, like we all do. Johnny forgot nothing.
Right.
And I suppose lots of the nuances in the music, I suppose what you're talking about, I think a lot of it did actually come from Johnny himself. He spent many years playing with O'Keefe, with Dennis Murphy, and he's found his way, I suppose, around taking their fiddle music and making his own of it on the accordion. I suppose then I would have learned a lot from Johnny and taken lots of those little bits of, I suppose, little bits of tricks and stuff that you'd be referring to. And I suppose really just from just copying Johnny's playing as much as I could. I mean, obviously I'm a BC player, but it's Johnny's sound and those types of musicians that you're trying to emulate when you get the music out of there.
That's the funny thing about your playing, Paudie, is you're a B and C player, but there's a lot of element of C sharp D in this. I remember myself and Colm talking about that before in your playing, that although you're playing B and C, if you weren't listening, you'd almost think sometimes you were playing C sharp D with the kind of the lift and the kind of a push and draw sort of thing that you are able to create from it.
Yeah, well,
it's quite unique.
I spent a lot of time like with Johnny, and I know when I was living in Dublin, Johnny used to come up about once a month to play for Ned O'Shea, and he'd always ring me the night before he came to Dublin to say, look, I'll be up tomorrow, I'll be playing, and he might be playing for a Cayley in Moran's Hotel, or not one down the Red Cow, Ned O'Shea's one in Talbot Street, or he might be playing in the Merchant, and I might give him a hand and I might play every second set for him. And sometimes we'd play together, and I was just really trying to follow him note for note, and even though I'm on a BC, so I ended up kind of modifying my playing to try to follow Johnny note for note, and we gave many nights playing together like that. And then even if he was in Dublin on a Thursday night, I'd often ring in sick. I was working in banking in Dublin at the time, and anytime Johnny was ever in Dublin on a Thursday night, I was always sick on a Friday. And I used to go way down to Knocknagree, and I'd go way down, he'd be getting the train down to the following day to back to his own house in Rathmore, and I'd often get the train down with him, and I'd head off to Knocknagree in that night, so I might have 2 days of basically just playing music solid with Johnny and learning from him. And before he'd come up, he'd always have 2 or 3 new tunes for you, like he'd be thinking about the trip up and having new tunes for you as well. So he was brilliant. But the great thing, what I always associate with Johnny's playing and all the kind of Sliabh Luachra musicians is I suppose the broad repertoire. It wasn't just jigs and reels all night. The great hornpipe playing. I mean, some of the quirkiest hornpipes I've ever heard have been are played by, say, Julie Clifford and her son Billy, and they even if you ever listen back to the Star of Munster trio and the Humorous Machine, there's some really lovely quirky hornpipes, and I suppose a lot of those tunes. Julia would have brought him back from London. Dennis Murphy would have brought tunes back from America as well with him, and then Johnny, of course, learnt them all and started playing them. So as I said, it's not just the polkas and slides, and I particularly love the polkas and slides. But what I might do actually is I might kind of play something related to your question. I might just play a set of hornpipes that are kind of played a lot around Sliabh Luachra, and even though they actually have very little to do with Sliabh Luachra, one of them is a version of the Cuckoo's Nest, the hornpipe, a 2-part version that Dennis Murphy is playing. Then Johnny, of course, learned it from Dennis, but it's a kind of a popular folk song, really, and telling the typical story of a sailor coming to shore and up to no good.
Yeah.
But he meets a woman that's the match of him, and she swindles him out of everything he has, including his clothes. But so that's the first tune I might play. And the second tune is a hornpipe called Peter Vipers, and he was the first guy to record, as far as we know, on a button accordion. I think he made a recording back in around 1903. As I said, the tune has nothing to do with Sliabh Luachra, but Julia Clifford used to play it, and her son Billy plays it quite a bit as well. And these tunes just made their way into the Sliabh Luachra repertoire, and you might even hear Johnny playing one of them for a set or anything at the end of the night in Knockdegree. So as I said, the repertoire of tunes that were played became very broad, much of it to do with the fact that Julie was living in England and came home several times back to Ireland. Dennis Murphy the same, having lived in London, lived in America as well. And as I said, Johnny Dinn was like a sponge for all this music coming back, and remembered it all, adopted it, and then just played it everywhere. And then my generation came along, and we all just learned those tunes from him.
Lovely. Yeah.
So I might give these a blast.
Absolutely.
So. So yeah, the first one is The Cuckoo's Nest, and the second one is Peter Vipers.
Lovely, Paudie. I was just thinking there, when you were playing, it's kind of a bit like the same in Connemara, that except that you have a much broader range of tunes than we have in Connemara, very few tunes. But when I think of the likes of my dad and Shawnee McDonough and Marcus Hernan and people like that are great musicians, they were in London and places, and they took tunes home and they played them, but they filtered them through their own Connemara kind of style. And
yeah,
Colm would know that as well, that, you know, they play tunes from all over the country, but once they play them, they sounded like Connemara tunes, although they weren't. And it's kind of the same what you're doing there, you know.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think a lot of what, going back to your original question, I think Johnny Leary put those tunes kind of through his own little sieve for the accordion as well, and what came out then was kind of Sliabh Luachraized or that sort of a thing. But that's it. What I like when I hear Julia Clifford, what I often love listening to her slow airs, listening to her hornpipes as much as I like listening to her playing a polka or a slide. Definitely. What we might do, guys, I'd love to get back and to hear a little bit more of all of you. So what we might do is we might kind of treat, I suppose, the last section of the night really like we would when we all get up on the stage and we play a few tunes down in Milltown Malbay. So maybe could we start maybe with yourself, Johnny? Would you give us maybe 3 selections of tunes and maybe talk a little bit about them and give us the background?
Yeah. Okay. I'll take the melodeon. I'll play 3 jigs. The first one is Na Canmhain Mhána, which is a Connemara song, and the second tune is another Connemara song, Ban Paudie, and these are 2 tunes that myself and my dad would have played a lot. And then the third tune, talking about that thing of filtering tunes from other areas, it's a song as well, Tom in Arrears, and it's an unusual minor version of it that I heard Cuivan O'Farrell and some of the lads from Unrhyne playing. But again, it's a tune that really suits the melodeon, and it's a tune that my dad definitely would have played had he heard it when he was, still able to play it, and it's one of those tunes that he definitely would have played, and it suits the melodeon very well. So I'll give those 3 maybe a bit of a go. see now, what will I play? I wonder, should I try another one on the melodeon maybe, and maybe finish off on the accordion? I haven't played this set much now, but I'm just, because of the thing we were talking about, filtering tunes and that, and it's a nice tie-in with the Sliabh Luachra if I can play it, but it's a tune that Shawnee McDonough plays, and he's been a big influence on myself and on Colm, and my dad absolutely loved his playing, and he is a second cousin of my dad's. Both their grandparents were brother and sister, and I think this tune is a tune that Paddy Cronin played. But of course, when Shawnee plays it, they would have probably heard Paddy Cronin playing in London or something. And if I can think of it, and try and follow it with something then. I was trying it with the Sailor on the Rock, but I haven't tried it since now. I'll give it a go anyhow and see what happens. So that was the Sailor in the Rock after it there. So that's the influence of Shawnee McDonough there, Shawnee Wilder, sort of coming out on the melodeon. So I think my melodeon playing is kind of a mixture of my dad and Shawnee a bit these days, or quite a lot probably, and I suppose my own thing as well. But I just don't know where we'd be without our great players to listen to the people that have gone before us. The music doesn't make sense unless you draw from the past, draw from the great players of the past, and still be creative in your own way as well. I'll finish off. I always find it really difficult to go from the melodeon to the accordion because it's such a different feel. Jesus. Sorry for cursing. I'll try two of my compositions. The first one is in honour of my dad, and I played it for the first time actually with John Blake. at a concert we had for my dad 5 years ago when he was still alive and still well able to play. We had a tribute concert to him. Colm was there. I don't know if Conor was there that night now, but it was a great night and people came from all over the country to it. A few people came from London as well. Shawnee McDonough came from London, and we had a great night. And I composed 2 tunes in his honour. The first one is called Shir Go Inishbarachan, back to Inishbarachan, which was his home, his island home. And I'll follow it then with Waltz and Clownish, which I suppose a lot of musicians probably know at this stage. Some of them even have learnt it. But it's a tune that I wrote for my sister's wedding, and it just goes back to the old thing of me composing tunes for friends and family, and it's kind of the way that it works for me. The first tune, Shir Go Inishbarachan, was inspired by thinking back when I was a kid in the car and my dad would be driving away and he'd be humming to himself, and I was always wondering, or singing to himself, and I was always wondering what he was singing to himself, and it was always kind of a minory kind of a sound, and that was the inspiration for the kind of that kind of sound that he had. It was like a ballad or something, you know, and that was the inspiration. So I'll give those 2 a try. Sorry, there was a bit of an adjustment there going from the melodeon to the accordion in the first tune there, but not to worry.
Great stuff, Johnny. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And when we were here, kind of oblivious to what's going on around us, we're in Zoom land here. There's actually one of the guys in the Seamus Innes Centre. What's her name? Who's just been on to be there? Emma from the Seamus Innes Centre said just to give a shout out to all the people who watch us on Facebook. We've been living in an old bubble here, but there's on Zoom, but there's hundreds of people watching on Facebook and on our YouTube channel as well. And I'd like to give a shout out to them and thank them all for tuning in. Apparently there's lovely comments coming in on Facebook. I just turned on my phone there, so I'm just seeing a few of them there. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. Colm, could we turn over to yourself there maybe for a few selections?
Yeah, not about it. I just want to say before we go any further that to be associated with this in the Seamus Innes Centre and Conor and Paudie and Johnny is to me is just fantastic. These guys are three of my heroes at three different stages of my life, and they kept being my heroes. Conor's younger, and I'm looking up to him, so it goes to show how important music is. When he was a kid, I was learning from him. So just being in these guys' company is fantastic. So thanks everybody for just letting me be involved. So I'm gonna play a couple of hornpipes. A few bob is the first one, which is all a musician can expect, and the second one's called the Harping Shamrock.
Thanks, Colin.
Oh, by the way, I'm playing a few different boxes here. This is the box I got. Used to be behind the bar in Dorchester in JJ's. And I got it off a guy, God rest him, Jerry Mannion. He was a great man, and it's a dinger of a box. When I sent it back to John Brosnan, one of our heroes, he said, "That's a good one now." And when John says that, you know it's good. That's 2 hornpipes for you guys anyway.
Good stuff. Would you give us another selection, Colm?
I will do one more, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna play a couple of reels for you. I have a student showing up at the door here, so he doesn't know I'm doing an online thing. If you wanna shoot out to your dad for a second, I'll be right out to you. Yeah, I'm gonna play 2 ones that I normally play all the time. The Silver Spear and one of Johnny McGree's.
Lovely, Colm.
Yep, no bother.
Mighty Colm, Grub Mahagod, thank you. Fair
you.
play. Conor, would you give us a couple of selections?
Here we are. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, I'll give. We were talking about airs and stuff earlier on. You know, I think the playing of airs is very important to the accordion as well, and it was something that influenced me a good bit. Going back as well, particularly Tony McMahon.
Yeah.
I think he's well known to many people, but yeah, here's a tune that I kind of associate with Tony, and yeah, I'll see how it goes. Okay. Am I loud enough? Am I? Okay. Something's after going haywire in that box there.
See, Conor, that's the trouble with Hohners.
Oh, I knew you were gonna get it.
Sorry.
Hopefully this one doesn't give up the ghost now too. Oh, very good. No, that yoke has been given out for a while now. I think.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Anyway, I'll give this a go. Anyway, it's a tune I learned from Tony, and it's a great song in Oscailge on road to Erngarig. So I'll give that a go.
Beautiful, Conor. Amazing. Beautiful.
The box managed to stay apart for the stay together for that anyway.
Would you give us another one?
Yeah, I'll chance this set here. What will I do? I played kind of Joe Cooley sort of influence of kind of Miss Monaghan earlier on, or Tickle of it, and there's this kind of piping sort of kind of version of it that I've been playing the last while back, and kind of Seamus Innes kind of influence to it as well. I might try that, and yeah, I might play the Drunken Landlady after it.
Lovely. Mighty Conor, Guramahagot. I was just saying there, the reputation of the humble Hohner is firmly intact after that treatment. Very good. We're coming towards the end of the night. I'm going to finish up with a couple of selections. I'm going to play a jig that I heard from the great Paddy Cronin. He called it Morrison's favourite, but it's also known as the pilgrimage jig. And I'm going to follow it with what's definitely my favourite jig. I play it a lot, so apologies if you've all heard it already. Every time I go out, I want to play it. It's called the Ducks and the Oats. And this is a version that Dennis Murphy used to play. Thanks, guys. I'm going to finish up with a set of reels. They're kind of two modified tunes. The first tune is called The Gates of Ansbrook. It's a tune I learned during when we were all sitting at home but nothing to do, only learning music. So it's in Bernach's collection, Ceol Rink and the Heron number 4. And it's the reel, it's, if you want to learn it, it's number, I think, 195, and it's called the Big Gates of Ansbrook. It's like a cross between the cherry blossom and the swallow's tail. So hopefully I don't go into either of those tunes. I'm trying to keep my head straight. And the second tune then is a tune that I learned also we were sitting at home there about this time last year. I played it for Colm during the week, and Colm said it's a Finbar Dwyer version of the Kerry Reel. Okay, so I'll give the two of those a go. Before we finish up there, I'd like to thank the three guys here for joining us tonight: Conor Connelly, Johnny Connolly, and Colin Gannon. I'd like to thank the Seamus Innes Arts Centre for putting this on, and also I'd like to thank the Arts Council of Ireland and Fingal County Council for their continued support of Chalk Seamus Innes and supporting all the wonderful things that to do across all the arts, not just the traditional arts, right across the whole spectrum. And they're doing great things in North County Dublin now with all this online stuff going on. They're bringing what we do and they do in the Seamus in Arts Centre to a whole new audience. So very big thanks to Shane and Emma and all the team there as well. Okay, so hopefully I can keep my head straight for these 2 tunes. Thanks very much, guys. It's been great. Thanks to all our people who joined us on Zoom, to everybody who've joined on YouTube, and to all the people that I couldn't see here on the Facebook, but I was hearing about all the lovely comments and all the encouraging things that were coming in. We very, very much appreciate it. The show will be available on the Seamus Innes YouTube channel to view. I think straight away after this, you can just replay it and start at the very beginning and listen at your own time. And if there's anybody who missed the show, you can just point them to the Seamus Innes YouTube channel. They can subscribe and they can look at this show and all the other wonderful things that have been going on over the last 18 months as well. There's some great music and singing and all sorts of, as I said, events to do with the full spectrum of the arts. And as I said, they're doing great work. So listen, thanks a million for joining us. I really look forward to the time that I can meet up with Johnny, Colm and Conor. That's what kind of inspired the night. I remember the last night we all met up was before Colm went to America, and I remember sitting down playing with all these guys and Conor singing songs on the piano at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we all really, really want those days to come back very, very soon.
And
okay, thanks a million, guys.
Soon.
Good night.
Thanks a million, guys.
Thanks for everything, guys.
Thanks a lot, Paudie.
Thank you, guys. Paudie, thanks for getting us involved.
Soon.
Guys, we'll see you soon. We'll have a bit of crack.
Bye-bye.
Fair play to everybody involved.
Take care.